Is the phrase the subcontinent well understood? In the past, I have used the phrase the subcontinent in conversations, but it has not always been clear if people know what I'm talking about. I find it a useful term as it covers, amongst others, India, Sri Lanka. The IT industry has a lot of people from those countries, thus it covers a lot of the people I work/play with. It would appear that English consider those countries Asian. I have also heard Americans referring to Indians as Asians, though not as commonly. This is not common in Australia. So, is this a term I can use safely?
This may vary depending on where you are and whom you're talking to. In most of the communities I've lived in, England, northeastern US, eastern Canada, it was certainly used and understood. I think it's fairly widely known. However, if you're finding some people are puzzled by it, you could instead say the Indian subcontinent. This is an almost as common version of the phrase, and should hopefully be clear to anyone.
As someone living in NZ, I'd give a different answer to Talon. That is, I judge that in New Zealand the word Asian used of a person or attribute without further qualification would in the first instance be though to refer to someone of Chinese/East Asian background, and only secondarily to someone from the subcontinent. Certainly what I understand to be the British usage, as per Marchin, where Asian refers in the first instance to people from the subcontinent, is not so commonly heard in New Zealand. As for subcontinent itself, I use it often and it is usually understood to mean the Indian subcontinent. I wouldn't hesitate to add Indian if need be. But if talking to a Pakistani or Bangladeshi or in a context where reference to those countries is implied, would more likely use South Asia. People in southern Africa, roughly south of the equator, often refer to their part of the continent as the subcontinent, so to avoid ambiguity you should speak of the Indian subcontinent if that's the one you mean.
This isn't really a question about the English language, it's a question about how some people view the world. The Indian subcontinent is, factually, part of Asia. As such, you can use the term without being subject to penalty of law. That said, the British Isles are factually part of the European continent, but I know plenty of people who would object to calling England, or even Britain, an European country. So you need to consider your audience. If they consider the subcontinent a descriptive, non-derogatory term, then using it is helpful. If not, you should not use it, whatever your personal views. This seems to me to be a perfect example of a problem with Stack Exchange's obsession with objective answers, namely that the correct answer depends on the intended audience. The correct answer to a question somebody asks you in a bar would not be the same answer you'd give in a witness box, even if the question was identical. Linguists refer to this as different registers. There doesn't seem to be a solution, or even a description, in ordinary life.
Depending on where you were brought up, the globe is divided into 5 or 6 continents. Africa, America, Europe, Asia, Australia, that's the mid-European view. Africa, North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Australia, that's the North American view. Each of these continents may have regions that could be considered a subcontinent, i.e. a part of the landmass that makes up the continent. Assuming that the subcontinent refers only to India and Sri Lanka is assuming that your audience knows that you refer to these countries. If you mention the subcontinent in a conversation in Africa or Europe, people may not make the connection to India/Sri Lanka at all. Also, the term Asian may mean different things in different countries. Generally speaking, Asian would be any person from the continent of Asia, which includes China, Japan, Vietnam, Korea, India, Pakistan, Mongolia and many more countries. Personally, I feel that Asian is too broad a brush to apply, since there are a lot of differences between the people and the cultures of the countries on the Asian continent. I've often come across the term Asian to refer specifically to people from India/Pakistan/Sri Lanka, whereas people from more eastern regions of Asia are instead referred to by country of origin, for example Chinese, Japanese. This is the usage I notice in New Zealand. It may well be different in other countries.